Hey everyone, want to talk with you a little bit about tax now, tax later, tax never. Now listen, in my system, I use tax now, tax later, tax never as a close. I do not use it in the one-on-one. I do not use it during the FLS. I do not use it anywhere else, Sam I am. I use it specifically in the close. I want you to understand, if you show them, this is like the movie. If you show them the movie early on, what are you going to show them at the end to close on a sale? So, you might be able to give them a little trailer on something, but don't show the movie. Okay? Tax now, tax later, tax never. I draw this out. It's called the Benjamin Franklin close. I draw this out on paper. Now, you may say to yourself, man, I don't think I could remember all this stuff and draw it out on paper. Here's a simple technique. Print out this slide. Tell your clients when you meet with them that you made a few notes and that you want to refer back to your notes so you didn't miss anything because you were thinking about them earlier this week, and you want to make sure that you get everything that you have in your notes out to them so they can clearly understand. They're not going to say to you, oh, I can't believe you made notes. How dare you? They're going to say, okay, fine, no problem. You can look at your notes. Then when you're writing out tax now, tax later, tax never on a piece of paper in front of them, if you forget something, you just simply glance at your notes, glance back. Very easy. This is something that I hope that you understand. They don't know what you're supposed to be saying. So you just keep going and you keep doing what you need to do. I think it's powerful to write it out because even though you may have written it out thousands of times, it's the first time that they have seen this. So for them, they're watching you write this out on a piece of paper and they're thinking to themselves, wow, my guy is smart. Look at all the stuff he's written out on this piece of paper versus just a monkey clicking a button. Next, next, next. They want to look at you as their know-all, be-all leader in finance, okay? So let's get to the computer and we'll get right at it. All right, everybody, here we are at the tax now, tax later, tax never. So first off, tax now. I want you sometimes to maybe, you ask the client, hey, do you remember the rule of 72 we went over in our one-on-one? They're going to say, sure, I remember it. But go ahead and just draw it out real quick on the right-hand side and say, we're going to reference this a little bit as we get going here. But tax now, there are several vehicles in tax now that you can use, one of which is a savings account. Savings accounts right now are earning, 0.02, 0.03. With inflation running at 6-7% currently, savings accounts are losing you money. Your money's sitting there devaluing every single day, right? Then you've got CDs, which stand for certificates of deposit. I jokingly like to call them certificates of depreciation because right now, your CDs are at maybe 1, 2, 3%. Inflation's at 7, 8, 9%. Normal inflation is what we put here on the slide, which is 3 to 4. But inflation currently, right now, in November of 2023, is at 7.8%. So this is crazy. Certificates of depreciation. You have to put your money in there, keep them in there for 3, 4, 5 years to see any of that return. Money market accounts. These are accounts you just simply sit there. They're liquid. They get 1 or 2% rates of return. Right now, currently, they're paying about 3 or 4, but that's only because inflation is super high. When inflation goes back down, so too will the rates of money markets. Then you've got bonds. I think my mother or grandmother bought me a savings bond when I was 4 or 5 years old. I'm now 47. I think that $100 savings bond is probably worth $110. So I'm not too stoked that my grandmother got me a savings bond, but I appreciate the effort. Individual stock, that's the proverbial putting all your eggs in one basket. You might be lucky and you might get Walmart at its inception, but you might be unlucky and you might get a little energy company here in Texas that you think is going to go through the roof. And you're saving money and buying stock, and the next morning you wake up and Enron is all over the news, and Ken Lay, the CEO, has embezzled a bunch of money and caused a crash, and your stock is worth 0. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, if stock is something you want to do, I don't do that. You can talk to E-Trade or your bank or Scottrade or one of those other companies that will allow you to do that online. I don't do stock. The next thing is mutual funds. Mutual funds is really kind of what you see most people's money in the tax now category. And the reason you see that is let's talk about the positives. Positives of a mutual fund, it's liquid. You can get to it. If you need it, it's within about 24 to 48 hours, you can get the money out of a mutual fund and into your hands. That's pretty cool. It's diversified, meaning a mutual fund, let's say we have 10 stocks. If one stock tanks, the other 9 stocks do okay. And so your average is much higher. A mutual fund is like that. It may have thousands of things inside of it, 100 things inside of it. So if one of the things inside of that fund tanks, don't have to worry about it. There are other things that might buoy it up. So mutual funds have a lot of diversity, but there are some negatives that are associated with mutual funds. The first negative is taxes. When you earn your dollar bill, you need to pay Uncle Sam some taxes. So when you pay taxes on your earnings, that's the first time that you're taxed on that dollar bill. The second time you're taxed is through dividends. Now, when you make money in that calendar year, you'll receive a 1099 saying that you owe taxes on this vehicle. Sometimes you can forego that, roll those in, and pay the gains later. But if that's the case, you'll pay capital gains tax when you take money out of your investment, of your mutual fund. So you are potentially taxed 3 separate times. Now, I'm not a tax attorney or a tax accountant or a CPA, so consult with somebody if you want to about that, but this is what I know to be true, that there are potentially taxed 3 times inside of a mutual fund. So what I know is this: wealthy people do not put money in places that they can be taxed 3 separate times for the same dollar. As a matter of fact, in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Business of the 21st Century, there is an interview with his lawyer and his CPA. And he says to them, hey, what do you see in people's portfolios? Do you see mutual funds? Sometimes they're called naked mutual funds because they don't offer any protection from tax. He said, do you see mutual funds? Do you see other types of investments, 401ks? And the answer was this. She said, no, we do not see mutual funds. Mutual funds are like French fries. They'll fill you up, but they're bad for you in the long run. So you may be asking, well, why in the world would anybody use mutual funds? Well, mutual funds can be used for a short-term parking of your money. If you want to buy a home or a car and you want to get a little bit better interest than you're getting in a bank, then you can use a mutual fund. It's still liquid. You can use it as your down payment. You can use it to move forward to buy a home or help with an emergency, etc. So that's a reason you would use mutual funds. But you do not use mutual funds, and I repeat, you do not use mutual funds as a form of building wealth over time. So let's move to the next thing, tax later. Well, there are things like 401ks, 403bs, traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, annuities, 529s, and the TSP, which is a government plan called the Thrift Savings Program. So let's talk about the positives and negatives of each one of these. The first positive is the money grows tax deferred. So unlike a mutual fund where you earn money and then Uncle Sam takes money from you in the form of taxes, what happens with a tax later vehicle is you earn you earn interest in your vehicle and your money is not taxed. So you can get your money moving for you in the direction of financial independence without Uncle Sam reaching in and grabbing your collar and yanking you backwards. The next one is matching. If you have a 401k at work, perhaps they're matching. Maybe they're giving you 3, 2, 5%. We don't know what they're matching, but if they are matching, guess what's really cool about that? You put in 3%, they give you 3%. That's a 100% rate of return. So if they're matching, you should probably keep doing that. If they're not matching, however, I think I've got some things I want to talk with you about that I can share with you to get that additional amount of money that you were putting in there in a tax-deferred vehicle and a tax-free vehicle. $60,000. This is the most you can put into some of these vehicles, like a SEP IRA. You can put in large chunks of money into a vehicle like this, which is really a good positive. And then finally, there are no income limits. It doesn't matter if you make $100,000 or if you make $10,000. That's why the janitor at IBM can save in a 401k, and so can the CEO. But the negatives associated with tax later are things like the seed. What I mean by that is, and I've got a little thing here that says the corn story, and you've got to memorize this story, and that's this. When you are putting money into a vehicle, it is a very small amount of money. It's going to be a seed, but it's going to grow into a crop of money later on down the road. Let's say that you were starting a farm and you took your Toyota Corolla down to the feed store and you bought bags of corn seed and you filled your car up with them. By the time you got home and planted all those seeds, watered them, cultivated them, and spent a lot of time, making sure your farm is going to grow, about 4 or 5 months later, guess what? You've got acres and acres of corn. You cannot harvest that corn with the same vehicle that you brought the seed in. So now you're going to need trucks. Well, you remember, hey, I got a really great break when I bought this seed from the guy who owned the store. He told me since I was starting up and I was young, I could get a tax break on this seed and I don't have to pay taxes on it anymore. And you were like fired up about that. Guess what? It's harvest day. And you're putting all this corn in these trucks, and up comes the man who owns the store. And he says, hey, what a bumper crop you have. Super excited to visit with you about that today because I forgot to tell you that whatever I gave you as a tax break on the seed, I'm going to have to charge you on every ear of corn that comes out of this crop. Guys, how much corn are you going to have, right? 2, 3, 4 ears of corn on every stalk for just one seed? Guess what? Taxes are always going to be bigger on the crop than they are on the seed. Always try to pay your taxes on the seed, never the crop. 59 and a half, that's the age at which you can take money from these vehicles without penalties. The problem with this is it was 52, moved to 57, moved to 59 and a half. Do you see a trend? We don't get to vote on that. What if you're 59 in 5 months and they change the rules? You have two options. You keep working until they tell you you can stop, or you say, you know what? I've had enough. I'm taking my money. In which case, there's going to be a bloodbath. You've got penalties, 10% on top of your tax bracket. If you need to have an emergency and you want to take money out of your account, right? There is borrowing, but I would say you shouldn't, because if you borrow from this vehicle, they're going to charge you a percentage amount. They're going to charge you 5-6% of your own money. So there is borrowing. I know the slide says no borrowing, but there is borrowing, okay? But you shouldn't do it because guess what happens? If you pay it back, they'll credit you back all the interest that they charged you. But if you don't pay it back, let's say you get laid off, you quit, or you get fired, they keep all the interest, they penalize you the 10%, and they charge you a tax bracket. So it's an absolute bloodbath. You have no liquidity. Who's in control of the money here? That's really what you should be thinking, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Who's in control of the money? Are you in control? Can you use it when you want? Can you use it for what you want? Can you take it in and out? Can you invest it where you'd like? Can you use it at a certain age or past a certain age? No. The government is in control of your money. You have to be 73 and they require what they call RMDs, required minimum distributions. At 73, you are forced to take money out of these accounts. If you do not, guess what happens? They will tax you and penalize you as much as 50% of the money that you're supposed to take out. So if you're supposed to take out $50,000, the government will keep 25 of it if you do not do it before 73. That's a required minimum distribution. So what's that mean? That means we have no plan completion. What's the likelihood of an emergency or an opportunity coming up in your lifetime? It's probably pretty good. Plan A with the government says, hey, if you save your whole life, never have an emergency, never have an opportunity, we don't change the taxes on you, we don't change the age at which you can pull it out, you don't need any money to borrow out, and you need, we leave it at 73, then guess what? Everything works for you. The government plan works. But what if you don't? What if you don't? Here's the deal. If you pass away, guess what? The plan doesn't work for you. If you need to leave money in there after 73, plan doesn't work for you. If you have an emergency or an opportunity, plan doesn't work for you. If you want to quit your job and you have money borrowed out of the account, plan doesn't work for you. If you're 59 and a half and they change it to 60, plan doesn't work for you, right? You guys, you seeing a trend here? So again, I'm not a big tax later individual, so let's move on to tax never. There are 3 ways you can do that: a Roth IRA, a VUL, and an IUL. Let's talk about the Roth IRA first, the positives and negatives of a Roth IRA. The first positive is the money's tax deferred. Tax deferred. That means the money grows tax-free or tax-deferred, and you don't have to pay taxes as the money grows. Second, if you reach 59.5, the money is tax-free. Before 59.5, just tax-deferred. After 59.5, tax-free. You're paying on the seed, which is good. We learned that earlier. And you've got some safety built in there because you've got choices. Now, people say, a Roth IRA is safe. Well, no, what I mean is a Roth IRA is simply a wrapper, right? Like a candy wrapper that has a chocolate candy in it. Maybe it's a golden wrapper, but it's a chocolate candy or a peanut butter candy or a caramel candy. It doesn't matter what's inside the candy. It's the fact that the wrapper is outside of it. A Roth IRA can be gold, can be silver, can be cash, can be in real estate, can be in stocks or mutual funds. It's simply a wrapper. So you've got some choices. If everything is tanking, you could move your account to a savings account and start saving yourself a little bit of downside interest protection. Negatives. $7,000 a year is the most you can contribute. I know that sounds like a lot, but maybe you can contribute more than that. You can only have one of these bad boys. So when I first started, I thought, well, it was $2,500 a month when I was first started saving. Maybe I'll just get two. Nope, government doesn't let you get two. They're not going to give you free tax growth and free tax-free withdrawal and let you put as much as you want and have as many as you want. It's the government. So there are income limits, by the way. If you make $146,000 as a single individual or $230,000 as a married individual, you cannot invest in a Roth IRA. And by the way, everything that applied to the tax later except 73 is subject to the IRA. So the VUL is a variable universal life. Get with somebody and learn a little bit more about that. I'm not going to talk about that here, but we're going to talk about the index universal life. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the index universal life is a little bit of life insurance or a little bit of savings account, wrapped with a life insurance vehicle. So what happens is you've got a little bit of life insurance wrapped with savings. And let's say out of $100, $25 goes to your savings, $25 goes to your life insurance, $75 goes to savings. And we saw earlier on the video where I showed you how to use the cost of insurance as a close. That's where you would go from here. You'd say, good, check this out, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. An IUL is tax deferred. It is tax free. You pay on the seed and not the crop. You've got tons of choices and you've got all this available growth. There is no 7,000. You can put as much as you want. Once you reach the cap that they have, if you reach the cap, you can get more than just one. There are no income limits. Everybody can have these, and there is no 73.5. So in my opinion, an index universal life is where we should probably start looking, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You've already got some money in your tax now category in your savings. You've got some money in your tax later or tax later vehicle, which is your 401k. And now we need to get money in the tax never vehicle. And my suggestion is an index universal life. Do you have anything or any questions on anything we went over on this slide? And that's what your slide is going to look like when you're done. That's what your drawn out piece of paper is going to look like. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, at this firm, here at this firm, we can help you. Now, you might not be licensed to do it, but somebody else in the firm is. At this firm, we can help you with any of these things we drew on this piece of paper. Do you have any questions on anything we went over? If you've done it right, they're going to say, no, you explained it pretty simply. I really enjoyed that. It was great. Awesome. Let's take a look at what we have to offer. From here, you go right into the illustration and show them what you got. I hope that makes sense. I hope you study it. I hope you do it over and over again. It's a little bit longer video, but I think it's worth it. So just keep going over and over and over. Tax now, tax later, tax never. Hope it works for you.